Shavua Tov, Good Vach, everyone. Please help yourselves at the buffet. The pita is hamotzi. You might want to wash upstairs or over here. There's a sink. But we do have to begin the program at 8:30 sharp.
seats. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. For those who, good vach. It was a joy and a treat to spend Shabbos with all of the new friends that I made this Shabbos, new and old friends. And for anyone who's joining tonight, I am excited for you to get to be a part of the very special energy that was this Shabbos. So, being as it is Matzah Shabbos, I wanted to share a story that the Tzemach Tzedek tells, that the Tzemach Tzedek told his Hasidim about the Baal Shem Tov. The Tzemach Tzedek told his Hasidim that the Baal Shem Tov, it was known that the Baal Shem Tov loved light. And so, any time that the Hasidim of the Baal Shem Tov knew that the Baal Shem Tov would be there, they did their very best to make sure to fill the room with lots of light and many, many candles. And it happened one evening that the Hasidim of the Baal Shem Tov knew that the Baal Shem Tov would be arriving, and they really wanted to fill this room with many candles and with great light, but they could only procure one candle. As much as they searched, they couldn't get another candle, just one. And they were so bitterly disappointed because they knew how much the Baal Shem Tov appreciated light. And when the Baal Shem Tov arrived, the Baal Shem Tov told his Hasidim to go outside and to take the icicles that were hanging on the building, on the roof of the building, and to bring them in. And once they brought them in, the Baal Shem Tov instructed them to light the icicles. And the icicles proceeded to burn just like candles, and to bring light. And the Tzemach Tzedek concluded, and the Tzemach Tzedek said, in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, they were able to make that even icicles produced light. And today's Hasidim are sitting in well-lit and well-heated environments, and yet it is cold and dark. And I just have to think that I wonder what the Tzemach Tzedek would say if he walked in tonight. I think the Tzemach Tzedek, I can't speak for the Tzemach Tzedek, but I would hope, I definitely feel like inside here it is warm and bright, lichtig environment. And I was asked tonight, my name is Chani Shem Tov. I've been very, very privileged to be a part of the Project Sichos share with Mrs. Rivki Slanim for I don't know how many years now, but I think it's 2 or 3, I don't remember. And I was asked to share what it means to me. And just this past week, for Yutes Kislev, I was learning a Sicha about what the Rebbe, where the Rebbe talks about the Friedrich Rebbe's mashal about Chassidus, corresponding to coals and pearls. And if you haven't had the opportunity to learn that Sicha, I really encourage you to learn it. I've learned it many times, and every time it like just fills me up, and it's so uplifting and inspiring. But over there, the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe quotes the Friedrich Rebbe, who I'm not going to share all of it, but I'm just going to relate back to it, that the Friedrich Rebbe says that Chassidus is like coals and pearls, and just like coals, coals create light and warmth. That's how you can heat a place and you can burn a fire to bring light. And in the mashal, and the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe takes the Friedrich Rebbe's mashal and elaborates on it in the Sicha. And just to bring a foundation of the Sicha back, when I think what Project Likutei Sichos has meant for me, I really think of those two words, light and warmth. The warmth, the passion, the energy, the excitement in Yiddishkeit and that Chassidus really fuels me with, and the light, the guidance, the direction, the clarity that I feel that I'm able to gain through learning the Rebbe's Sichos. A friend of mine, Chani Backman, a few years ago, I can't remember when it was, but she was the one who told me about Project Likutei Sichos. I don't remember how it came up in our conversation. I think she was telling me that she had joined and how much she was enjoying it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try and join. And I tuned in, and I remember that at the beginning, I felt like I had ants in my pants. I could barely sit through because it was such a great, immersive, in-depth experience. But I wasn't used to sitting and really plowing through a sikha with all the details, with all the ins and outs and the back and the forth. And sometimes, you know, I know for myself that if I'm learning and I'm preparing to learn with someone, or I'll often choose a sikha that, you know, it just goes, and I can learn it, and it's more smooth and easy. And here, some of the sikhas really were and are very challenging, and even just to like keep focus and to keep track took effort. And of course, I'm so grateful for the clarity with which Mr. Slanim gives it over, because I really don't think that I can navigate many or most of these sikhas on my own, but yet when we learn it together, there's so much clarity and it brings so much. And I decided that at first I said, I think I'm going to give it like 3 weeks before I make a decision if I could keep doing this. And after 3 weeks, I was hooked, and I've been there ever since. It's just such a gift to dive into the Rebbe's Torah and to maybe get a glimpse into viewing the world through the Rebbe's viewpoint. So many times we just take a concept and we chew and we swallow and we move on. But here I feel like the Rebbe takes a concept and the Rebbe questions and unpacks it and explores it and asks all these questions that we would never have come up with. And then you think, and now where are we going? And it really gives, I feel like it just gives a deep dive into the beautiful sea of Torah. And like I said, even those very technical sichos where I would never have navigated on my own or had the perseverance to get through, I often find that, you know, with the beauty of the class where Mrs. Rifki Slanim shares it and clarifies, and we go back and forth and we go through it so clearly. And then, you know, in the mashal of the calls and the pearls, the Rebbe says that in order to dig for those coals, you need to have a foreman who is directing you for how to find the coals. And the Rebbe corresponds that to, that's what a Rebbe is there for, to guide us for how to apply the Chassidus into our life. And so even when there is a sikha that is technical and back and forth, I so much enjoy the walking away with a clear guidance of the Rebbe's clear hara on how to live practically as a chassid, as a shlucha in every arena of my life. And it really is priceless. This past week, I actually messaged Rifka after the show, like, I was sitting there, and as we were learning it, I was like, the Rebbe is speaking directly to something that I'm really struggling with. And I had such clear guidance about how to navigate it. And it brought me such a, just like such an inner peace to know, first of all, that there was a way to be able to navigate this, and also that, like, obviously there's a way. I mean, that maybe that shouldn't be such a, something that, but I just felt so, like, I know exactly what I need to do, and I just need to implement that. And it felt like the Rebbe was speaking exactly to me, and this is not the first time that that's happened. So the clear and practical guidance that I feel like I get for that day, for the week, it really just energizes me. And that's after the Sicha Shir actually finishes. And Tzippa, thank you Tzippa for all the effort that you put into to making sure that our shir runs smoothly. So Tzibah presses, recording stopped, and then the Farbrengen starts. And what I really love about the discussion that follows is that it helps me integrate and think about the concepts that were taught. So many times, the very insightful members of our class bring up things that make me think like, it kind of frames it differently. And a lot of, there's certain people in the class who will say, but like, make it so practical and integrated into how I can take this with me, and the discussion and the back and forth, and it really just opens up the Rebbe's words for us to take it home. And in the Sicha that the Rebbe was that I was originally referencing, the Rebbe says that just like the coal miner, when he goes down, or the deep sea diver, when they go down to mine the coals or to find the pearls, they cannot rely on the oxygen. The miner cannot rely on the oxygen of the foreman. He needs to have his own oxygen tank so that he can breathe. And the Rebbe says similarly, otherwise he'll be, as the Rebbe says, a neufel. He won't be able to survive. And the Rebbe says this is like for us, like learning Chassidus. We need to constantly be attached to the source of light, of life, of oxygen, of chayas, oren chayas. And the Rebbe says, imagine someone said, on Sunday I'll breathe, on Tuesday I'll breathe, but on Monday I need to take a break. You wouldn't be there by Tuesday. And that's like us with Chassidus. When we learn Chassidus, it infuses us and fills us with the warmth and the light and the life force, the life-giving force of Torah. And I also have to say that something that I think is so beautiful about Project Likutei Sichos is that everyone's learning the same Sicha, and I can have, my husband and I can discuss what he enjoyed about the Sicha, or what, which Sicha you're learning. And then my son, which has been very precious for me, my son who's in yeshiva, is doing a mitzvah where they learn Project Likutei Sichos, and he'll call me and he'll say, so Ma, which Sicha did you learn this week, and what did you think about it? And I can't discuss the Gemara with him, that for sure I can't, but it's so special for me to be able to talk to him about this, and to be able to share that. And that's why Project Likutei Sichos, the Sicha Share on Monday, continues to be a recurring event in my calendar. Every single Monday, for me, it's at 9 a.m., and I block off that time, and it's really sacred time for me. And I'm so, so grateful to have that time, and I'm especially grateful to Mrs. Rivki Slanim for week after week. I cannot even imagine how much goes into preparing the share. Every week, without exception, the class is delivered in the most exceptional, clear, authentic, it's just so beautiful. And I want to thank you, Rivki, and Benchu, that Hashem should bless you with everything good and sweet, and with real light and warmth in your life. And only, amen. But you are bringing it to make it possible for all of us, so thank you. Without further ado, Mrs. Rivki Slanim. Oh, I'm sorry. First, there's going to be a film of the Sichos, to understand a little bit of what the Rebbe's precious Sichos have brought into our world and into our lives. Sorry, Rivki.
First encounter with the Rebbe's Torah. Okay, I didn't see that question coming. Before I encountered the Rebbe's Torah, I encountered the Rebbe himself. And I don't mean personally, I never had the privilege of actually having a yechidus or even being online for dollars. But I mean, like the whole world, being a beneficiary and an admirer of all that Chabad is. Who is this man and what is his Torah? Where is he deriving this from? What is the engine that is leading to his having this army that is revolutionizing and changing the world in an extraordinary way? And that was my entree into the Rebbe's Sicha.
Let's talk about the structure of a Farbrengen. And I think that will really give us a picture of what we call a Sicha. The Rebbe would come down, they'd usually sing a song, and then the Rebbe would begin what we call
First encounter with the Rebbe's Torah. First encounter with the
Can you download it now? You ready? A good Vach, everybody. Those who were with us for the whole Shabbos and those who have joined after Shabbos. How fitting is it that our first and only PLS Shabbaton in Golus should be held over this Shabbos, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. Ashreinu, how fortunate we are, how indebted we are to Project Likutei Sichos, to Rabbis Gurari, Nachlas, and Wilhelm, all powerhouse shluchim and close friends who one Shabbos afternoon during Gefabringen dreamed up this project and unleashed this energy, and the world has never been the same. Our personal worlds have been transformed. And before I talk about how I understand what the Sichos do for us, I just, from the bottom of our hearts, I know I speak for everybody who is here for Shabbos, I want to thank the rabbis who conceived and gave birth to PLS and continue to nourish it for the Shabbos that they gave us together. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we will never forget this Shabbos together. And we are very, very, very grateful to you. In considering how best to sum up what Likutei Sichos does for us, I could not help but think of a hologram, and indulge me, please, as I explain. In 1982, a remarkable event took place. At the University of Paris, a research team led by physicist Elaine Aspect discovered that under certain circumstances, subatomic particles, such as electrons, are able to instantaneously communicate with each other, regardless of the distance separating them. It doesn't matter whether they are 10 feet or 10 billion miles apart. Somehow, each particle always seems to know what the other is doing. Now, the problem with this, and the reason why most of us did not hear about it, is that it violates Einstein's long-held principle that no communication can travel faster than the speed of light. And since traveling faster than the speed of light is tantamount to breaking the time barrier, this daunting prospect has caused some physicists to try to come up with elaborate ways of explaining the whole thing away, but it has inspired others to offer even more radical explanations. University of London physicist David Bohm, for example, believes that Aspect's findings imply that objective reality does not exist, and that despite its apparent solidity, the universe is nothing but a gigantic and fabulously detailed hologram. What is a hologram? Very quickly, it's a three-dimensional photograph. Sometimes when you're watching news today, you're not looking at an actual news anchor, you're looking at a hologram of him or her. How do they produce this? They produce this with the aid of a laser. To make a hologram, the object to be photographed has to be bathed in the light of a laser beam. Then a second laser beam is bounced off of the reflected light of the first, and then the area where the two laser beams commingle is captured on film. When the film is developed, it looks like a meaningless swirl of light and dark lines. But as soon as the developed film is illuminated by yet another laser beam, a three-dimensional image of the original object appears. That is truly remarkable, but the three-dimensionality of such images is not the most remarkable characteristic of holograms. Here is the most remarkable characteristic. If a hologram of a rose, for instance, is cut in half and then illuminated by a laser, each half will still be found to contain the entire image of the rose. Indeed, if the two halves are then divided again, each snippet of film will always be found to contain a smaller but complete intact version of the original image. Unlike normal photographs, every part of a hologram contains all of the information possessed by the whole. The, quote, whole in every part nature of a hologram provides us with an entirely new way of understanding organization and order. Because for most of history, Western scientists have tried to understand a physical phenomenon, whether a frog or an atom, by dissecting it and studying its respective parts. A hologram teaches us that some things in the universe do not lend themselves to this approach. If we try to take apart something constructed holographically, we will not get pieces of which it's made. We will get an infinite number of smaller wholes. Now, this is where physics and Hasidus begin to sound like mirror images of each other. This insight suggested to Bohm that the reason that subatomic particles are able to remain in contact with one another, regardless of the distance separating them, is not because they're sending some sorts of mysterious signals between each other, but because separateness is an illusion. I repeat, separateness, the whole notion of separateness is an illusion. He argues that at some deeper level of reality, such particles are not individual entities. They are actually extensions of the same fundamental something. And he adds, we view objects such as subatomic particles as separate from one another because we are only seeing a portion of reality. Such particles are not actually parts, they're facets of a deeper, more underlying unity that is ultimately as holographic and indivisible as the previously mentioned rose. So the universe is a projection, a hologram. The universe is a projection of something other. This is not yet Hasidus, this is physics. If the apparent separateness of subatomic particles is illusory, it means that at a deeper level of reality, all things in the universe are infinitely interconnected. The electrons in a carbon atom in the human brain are connected to the subatomic particles that comprise every salmon that swims, every heart that beats, every star that shimmers in the sky. Everything interpenetrates everything. And although human nature may seek to categorize and pigeonhole and subdivide the various phenomena of the universe, all divisions are of necessity artificial, and all of nature is ultimately one seamless web. In a holographic universe, this is where it gets very interesting, even time and space can no longer be viewed as fundamental, because concepts such as location break down in a universe in which nothing is truly separate from anything else. Time and three-dimensional space would also have to be viewed as a projection of the deeper order. At its deeper level, reality is a sort of super hologram in which the past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously. In stark contrast to Western ways of thinking about the nature of reality, Bohm, like I said, considers our separateness an illusion. And for Bohm, empty space is full of energy and information. It's a hidden world, also known as zero-point field, or akasha, which I couldn't help sounded a little bit like alma discasia. One of the most valuable insights Bohm has given us is about the nature of randomness. In Bohm's view, When a behavior is described as random, this label indicates our lack of understanding rather than the nature of the system itself. There is no randomness. Now, as you could see, I am utterly fascinated. I'm besotted with this whole concept because I just love finding how science parallels the reality that Hasidus teaches, which, by the way, is the concept that runs like the carotid artery through the Rebbe's Torah. It's an outgrowth of the Rebbe's assertion about the essence of all things. Now, here are just a few of the many concepts that we have been learning in the Rebbe's Sichos.
First encounter with the Rebbe's Torah.
We're all familiar with the concept of Ein
Okay, I didn't see that question coming. Before I encountered the Rebbe's Torah, I encountered the Rebbe himself. And I don't mean personally, I never had the privilege of actually having a yechidus or even being online for dollars. But I mean, like the whole world, being a beneficiary and an admirer of all that Chabad is. Who is this man and what is his Torah? Where is he deriving this from? What is the engine that is leading to his having this army that is revolutionizing and changing the world in an extraordinary way? And that was my entree into the Rebbe's Sicha.
We know that it's Bashtuza de Moshe b'chol dara v'dara because
Let's talk about the structure of a Farbrengen. And I think that will really give us a picture of what we call a Sicha.
We all know that there's no randomness, just Hashgacha Pratis. So how fabulous is it to see these concepts understood scientifically? The notion of the world as a hologram is axiomatic to the notion of what they're calling the grand unified theory, also referred to as the theory of everything, or final theory, or ultimate theory of the world, or master theory. You cannot make this stuff up, okay? Now, all of these different names refer to a singular, all-encompassing, coherent, theoretical framework of physics that fully explains and links together all physical aspects of the universe. Now, for decades, scientists have been in pursuit of finding the final pieces of this puzzle. The major unsolved aspect right now has to do with gravity. So science has not yet found that complete unified field, the ultimate theory, but our Rebbe has. He found it, he taught it, and in his Likutei Sichos, he gave us the gift of the grand unified theory. One of the hardest things to deal with in life is fragmentation, feeling pulled in multiple directions simultaneously, being forced to prioritize and rank things, all of which are urgent, dealing with conflict, with tension, with dissonance, trying to divide ourselves in pieces and then smaller pieces. And the Rebbe comes with his Torah, and he gave us a whole new way of looking at and facing life. It's all one grand unified theory. Yes, the Rebbe said, we have to do it all. We can do it all because it's all intersected, integrated, interfaced. In the Rebbe Sichos, in his Torah, Shemayim and Aretz, heaven and earth, are not two interrelated planes. They are interlocked. Men and women are not vying for prominence. They're not jockeying for a position. They are working in tandem to finish up the project called Dira B'Tachtonim, a home for God in this world. Parenthood and our work outside of the home, they're just two sides of the same coin. Observant and not yet observant Jews don't occupy parallel universes. Our own Avodas Hashem, our own work, what the Rebbe calls im atzmai, and reaching out to others, im hazulas, it's all the same thing. You're wondering about what you should prioritize, davening or learning? Again, two sides of the same coin. Should we pour our efforts towards strengthening our own internal Chabad community and ecosystem, or the Jewish world entire? For the Rebbe, it's the same thing. The answer is always both, of course. Nigla and Nister, the exoteric and the esoteric aspects of the Torah, They're not disparate disciplines in the Rebbe's Torah. Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Said, they're not four strata. They're absolutely intermeshed. Radically, the Rebbe taught that the Yerida, the descent, is not only for the purpose of ascent, it is part of the ascent. And most importantly, the Rebbe taught us that Geula and Geula, the exile and the redemption, are not two eras that follow one another. The Rebbe taught that the Geula, the redemption, is embedded in the Golus, and all we have to do is put in the Aleph of Geula. If we light up the Geula with the Aleph, the Alufa Shel Olam, that's Geula. They're not two different things. The grand unified theory can be referred to as the Yechida Shebenefesh, the highest level, the nexus, the core, the unsullied vortex of all. In his Sichos, the Rebbe gave us his neshama. It's the Rebbe's anoichi, ana, nafshi, kisavis, yahavis. I wrote in my neshama in this Torah. But it's not stam, the neshama. And that's how the Rebbe's Torah differs from the other Rebbeim. It's the Yechida Shebeneshama. And therefore it's the Yechida of the world, it's the Yechida of Klal Yisrael, it's the Yechida of Jewish history, and it's the Yechida of each one of us. The Rebbe brought us all into the Yechida era of Jewish history, where fracture and fissure are falling away. He never told us what to think, but every single day he teaches us how to think, how to understand our life and every minute thereof as a mission, how to understand the other as an extension of the self, how to appreciate the magnitude of the gift that is each moment and each resource, and how to see the wholeness in each part. Chasidim and Misnagdim, no one seems to remember what all the brouhaha was about. It's no longer about those inside versus those outside. Va'amer kulam tzadikim. The Rebbe never tired of having young children say, Va'amer kulam tzadikim. Your entire nation are all righteous. Because the Rebbe uncovered the Yechida. The unsullied core of each Yid is manifesting. We're no longer focused on the facade. And let's just say that October 7th highlighted it's time to move past the veneer. There is no longer any degree of separation between different Jews. And Einoid Milvadai, there's nothing but God. The Rebbe's Torah is holographic. There's a hole in each part. W-H-O-L-E. And the whole world is starting to realize this. In 1950, Rabbi Herbert Wiener, a longtime Reform rabbi, and the author of a book called 9.5 Mystics, had a deeply illuminating conversation with the Rebbe. And in Rabbi Wiener's words, he recounts the Yechidus, the time that he spent alone with the Rebbe, and he says as follows: I opened my notebook and I sat back in the chair, again conscious of how comfortable and relaxing it was in the Rebbe's office. Then I remembered that this was my last chance, and I resolved to ask even the most embarrassing questions. This was his second, I think it was his second, it may have been even a third time that he spent time alone.
First encounter with the Rebbe's Torah.
An effort to solve the enigma of Lubavitch. I explained to the Rebbe that more than a year had passed since I began trying to understand the movement, and that I had come to him now with a confession. I did not understand, would he mind if I started to interview him by asking him about the character of a chassid. The Rebbe smiled and he told me to go ahead. And as before, I could speak in English, but he would reply to me in Yiddish. I said, isn't the fact that Hasidim turn to the Rebbe
First encounter with the Rebbe's Torah. Okay, I didn't see that question coming.
Before that makes a human being, his bechira, his freedom of will? The Rebbe's answer came without hesitation, as if he had dealt with this question before. The Rebbe said, a weak person is usually overcome by the environment in which he finds himself. But our Hasidim can be sent into any environment, no matter how strange or hostile, and they maintain themselves within it. So how can we say that it is weakness which characterizes a Chassid? I pressed my question from another angle. I told the Rebbe that I sensed a desire in Chabad to oversimplify, to strip ideas of their complexity merely for the sake of superficial clarity. As a matter of fact, I blurted out, all of his Hasidim seem to have one thing in common, a sort of open and naive look in their eyes that a sympathetic observer might call tmimut, purity, but that might less kindly be interpreted as simple-mindedness, the absence of inner struggle. I found myself, Rabbi Wiener writes, taken aback by my own boldness. But the Rebbe showed no resentment. He leaned forward and he said to me, what you see missing from their eyes is a kera. A what? I asked. Yes, the Rebbe repeated quietly, a kera, a split. I want to suggest that this is the most profound gift. This is what we came together to thank our Rebbe for. We learn from his Torah how to be people who do not suffer a kera, internal strife and confusion, splintering, fissure within one's own self-identity. Among those who learn the Rebbe's Torah, there is a unique joy and a confidence and a seamlessness and a lack of self-consciousness. A young boy of 13, 14, 15, 16 can walk through an airport and he knows that the whole airport and all the flight patterns and every single thing was created just for the Jew that is going to roll up his sleeve and put on tefillin. And these little bachrim do this without any self-consciousness because they know. Everybody else thinks this is an airport. And they know this is just a place where they could find Jews who have some time while they're sitting waiting for their flight. That's it. Now, even as we struggle with our weaknesses and our failings, and we all do struggle, we understand that this process is integral to our life's work. It is this wholeness that sustains us. And in the Sicha that was referenced earlier today during Gafar Bringen and that Chani referenced, the Rebbe asks, why does the Friedrich Rebbe give us so many more details about Hasidus and how it is compared to coal than the other analogy, which is the pearls? And the Rebbe says as follows. When it comes to coal, which is warmth and light, things vital for life, then there is no other way to overcome the Golus. And that's why the Friedrich Rebbe focused on how Hasidus is like coal. Because without the light and warmth of Hasidus, you cannot overcome the Golus. But there's another parable, and that is the pearls. And now, when Mashiach's coming is imminent, pearls are no longer a luxury. See, in the Friedrich Rebbe's time, when Mashiach's coming was not as imminent, the Rebbe said, the crucial issue in his day was to ensure that Jews do not fall prey to the intense darkness of the Golus. So Hasidus was a means of revitalizing Jewish commitment to Torah. And that was more important than Hasidus as an end to itself compared to pearls, which is a luxury. But now, pearls are not a luxury. The Rebbe says, when one stands before a king in his royal court, respect and honor for royalty requires, demands more than ordinary clothing. One must also wear jewels and pearls. Mashiach is coming very soon. The darkness of the Golos will end. The true and ultimate redemption will begin. And the redemption, the Rebbe says, our sages taught, is the ultimate wedding between the Jewish people and Hashem. And a wedding needs preparation. And the pearls are necessary to adorn the bride. And Knesset Yisrael, all of us are the bride. So we must therefore learn Hasidus in abundance. What does it mean to wear the pearls? This could mean mean listening to a shir or podcast from PLS while we're cooking or driving or exercising. It's a new world. We women are wearing our pearls on every and any occasion, on WhatsApp and on social media. The Rebbe's Sichos are being analyzed and dissected. The Middle Rebbe said that what he wanted, his dream was that when two when two Hasidim met each other, they should talk. There are different versions of this, but they should talk about Yehuda Ilah and Yehuda Tata, the higher way of understanding the unity of godliness, and the lower. And like I said, there are other versions, but he wanted Hasidim to speak Hasidus. Our Rebbe wanted all of us, men, women, and our kinderlach, our children and old folks, to be discussing Hasidus when they meet and how it suffuses our everyday. Out with the recipes and the stupid table centerpieces, and in with the Sichos and the analysis. The Zohar, the Rebbe continues in that Sicha taught that Jews in exile are compared to a bride, a kala, in a smelly tannery. But because of Hashem's great love for her, Hashem is willing to overlook the foul smell and enter into the tannery with his bride. But that is only in exile, the Rebbe says. But now, when the Geula is coming, can we go to the wedding with clothes fit for a tannery? Absolutely not. We must all acquire pearls. On the topic of going towards the chuppah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want to conclude with a teaching that the Rebbe shared in a sicha on Yud Beis Tammuz, Tov Shin Chav Zayin, the summer of 1967. I just learned this, and my world was absolutely rocked. The Rebbe spoke about Rabbeinu Gershom, who is a great sage who lived in Metz, France, from the year 960 to 1040. He was one of the greatest Torah scholars of his time. And among his many accomplishments, there were two edicts which are known far and wide. One makes it impermissible for Jewish men to have more than one wife at the same time. And the other removed the right of a husband to divorce his wife without her consent. The Rebbe asks, why is it that of all towering Jewish leaders in history, Rabbeinu Gershom is the only one referred to as the Me'or HaGoyla, the luminary, the one who lights up the Golos? And the Rebbe said as follows, and I'm going to read it in the original and then translate. And the Rebbe said he saw this in a sefer. Shebechol makom sheniskar shmoy shel Rabbeinu Gershom, ma'isifim miyades hatoyer ma'or hagoyla. Shaloi matzinu dugmasay etzel haga'onim shalafanav hagdolim shala'achrav. Every time you say the name Rabbeinu Gershom, you add ma'or hagoyla, the one who irradiated the Golos. The Rebbe says we don't see anything before or after quite like this. The Rebbe says, this is connected to two of his many edicts. Takana ha'alef, she'ein adam yachal legarish es ishtay bal korcha. V'hatakana ha'bei, she'ein adam yachal laseis isha shnia al ishta harishayna. You can't divorce a woman against her will. You cannot marry two women simultaneously. The Rebbe says, Uvechein, al yedei shtei takanais elu. Heir Rabbeinu Gershom is called Hagoyla, Ma'ar Hagoyla. Through these two edicts, Rabbeinu Gershom illuminated Golus. Shagam kasher b'nei Yisrael nimtzoim begolus. Golus pnimis v'golus chitzonis. Even when Jews are found in Golus, an inner Golus, an outer Golus, Yeshna takana. Rabbeinu Gershom made an edict, Aleph, Sha'asur la'kadosh baruch hu l'garish es Knesset Yisrael chas v'sholom bal korcha. Hashem cannot divorce B'nai Yisrael against their will. The kevon shebarur hadavar sheyehudi eno yachol ve'eno reitze liyos nifrad melikus k'mayim Rabbeinu Zaken, and because it's clear that a Jew cannot and does not want to be sundered from God, as Alter Rebbe taught, harei ein la'kadosh baruch hu breira. Kadosh Baruch Hu has no choice. And beis afilu loymar sheyikach isha shniya al ishta rishayna. And what if the Eibusher is going to say, you know what? Let me get myself a good wife. Not a wife that's going to reconstitute me and conserve me and reform me and orthodox me and reconstruct me. No, I'm going to get a wife that likes me the way I am. Omer Rabbeinu Gershom. Rabbeinu Gershom says to the Eibusher, Zois loy. This not. That's it. You only have one wife, and that is us. May the powerful teachings of the Rebbe illuminate the last moments of this painful galus and give us the strength to be the Nashim Tzidkanis, the righteous women, through whose agency the Rebbe promised over and over again the Geula will be ushered in bimheira v'yameinu mamash. Amen. Good talk.
So now we'll see a video of how the Rebbe's Sichos and the Rebbe's Torah have impacted so many people. Turn your eyes to the screen.
First encounter with the Rebbe's Torah. Okay, answer that question, Colin. Before I encountered the Rebbe's Torah, I encountered the Rebbe himself. And I don't mean personally, I never had the privilege of actually having yechidus or even being online for dollars. But I mean, like the whole world, being a beneficiary and an admirer of all that Chabad is. Who is this man? What is his Torah? Where is he deriving this from? What is the engine that is leading to his having this army that is revolutionizing and changing the world in an extraordinary way? And that was my entree into the Rebbe's Sichos.
Let's talk about the structure of a Fabrein. And I think that will really give us a picture of what we call a Sicha. The Rebbe would come down and usually sing a song, and then the Rebbe would begin what we call a Sicha. A Sicha literally means a talk.
Discuss many subjects, all kinds of subjects, things which would go deeper into the Talmudic discussions. We talk things of Kabbalah, we talk things of Chassidus.
Rabbi Hirschsprung, the famous Baki B'Shas, and the rabbi of Montreal, the famous rabbi, would often come to Fabrengens. You could just see his excitement. It was palpable. He was like literally like bubbling.
You know, there are some people who are very great in Lingua, some people very great in Kabbalah. The Rebbe not only was great in both, and his Sichos are both, but he shows how they're all one, they're all intermingled, they're all together. The Rebbe connects a Rasha with Chassidus, Pshat, which is simple Pshat, Chassidus, Gemara, Chassidus.
They would then sing, the Chassidim would sing another song. People would say L'chaim during the song to the Rebbe. The Rebbe would acknowledge L'chaim L'vracha. And then would begin, after a song that would, let's say, last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the Rebbe would begin We go a half hour, sometimes 40 minutes. There were talks, Sichos, that would last an hour.
Which is 1969, when they reached the moon the first time. There was a whole two Fabrengen of what we learned from the rocket that came to the moon. What does that mean? What does it teach us?
The Rebbe's most commonly used expression was Torah Meloshin Hera. Torah is above all a blueprint for life that God, who created existence and created each one of us as human beings, is giving us a blueprint to tell us how best and the healthiest way to live our lives.
The Rebbe gives insight into who we are and what makes us tick, and maybe he's commenting on Sukkim, the Torah, or the Parsha, but it's taking an ancient text and it's making it relevant to ourselves.
He was able to take the Milson Chadet and Atikin, ancient words, new words. He was able to take the old Torah to make it so relevant. Here you have a person that was born in another world and came to America at a later part of his life. But it seemed to me that he understood an American boy more than any American Rebbe that I ever had.
We're talking about the late 60s, the early 70s, the Baal Tshuva movement was growing, and obviously a highlight of their being here in Crown Heights was going to the Rebbe's Fabrengens. But not knowing Yiddish or Lashon Kodesh, they had no idea what's going on. They wouldn't follow at all.
There were not hundreds of people, thousands of people, who wanted to see what the Rebbe was saying. They didn't want to hear what somebody else said the Rebbe said. They wanted to hear what the Rebbe was saying.
So those 20-year-old boys learning in the yeshiva in 70 by the Rebbe, they would translate the general ideas and the flow of the Rebbe's words.
I did the writing, Rabbi Nafsa did all the other work, and a lot of the writing also. It became successful enough that we had to quote institutionalize it. Sichos started in 1978.
So here you have some of the Sichos, some of the Fabrengens that the Rebbe requested the translation, and the Rebbe had the translation edited. So see over here, there would be extensive editing on the Sichos. As you have here, almost every line, the Rebbe editing the Sichos in English and changing the wording. Sometimes the Rebbe preferred certain words over others. The last few decades, there's been an explosion of content, Chabad content from the Rebbe's talks. Want to know the Rebbe from the Rebbe's own voice. Because the Sichos was the place that the Rebbe saw as his magnum opus.
Because the Sichos was what the Rebbe personally edited week after week over the years. We have the unedited, which is the longer versions, but the edited talks have much more precision.
First we worked on it here and back and forth between ourselves. Then when we had a finished product from our side, it was typed double-spaced and left a lot of space on the sides. And the Rebbe would check it and add, and take off or whatever it is and send it out. And then it was put on, we called it in the printing press, Gillies. It was given to the Rebbe again. And the Rebbe the second time edited the second time. And many times he added more the second time than the first.
The Rebbe was insistent that we challenge him, not just accept whatever he says. That if something was not clear, or something seemed to be a contradiction. So we would write to the Rebbe on an ongoing basis, literally daily.
The Rebbe put in many hours every week. There was one time I remember that one of the secretaries of the Rebbe said that this week you should know the Rebbe worked on the Sicha 10 hours. He walked into the Rebbe when the Rebbe was already finished almost with editing the Sicha, and the pages were open. The Rebbe closed it and gave it to him, and he said, give it to them, because Ein Ledover Sof means there's no end to it.
It was a very arduous and difficult process because we had to take these brilliant ideas and make sure that what we said was aligned.
First it came out weekly, Kumtres, weekly pamphlets, and then after a while it turned into the Sefer. Then more pamphlets came out, turned another Sefer. We have 39 volumes just of Likutei Sichos.
Tell me a little bit about what you see when you're looking at it. First of all, it's gorgeous. I mean, look at that. You want to open it. This is the Rebbe's Sefer, and we want to keep true to the original. We kept the kind of the font and the look of the original Sichos on the right side, and the English was kind of side by side on the left side.
To learn a Sicha is to go on an adventure, where the Rebbe is able to quote and to take from what seem to be diverse and disparate sources and somehow weave them all together. And the gift of this set, through not only the translation, the elucidation, the footnotes, the introduction, the summaries on the side, is that it puts it all together and it makes it available, accessible to people of different levels of learning.
The truth is, all of Torah is in fact that idea of translation. Taking the spiritual and showing how it's reflected in the material. Showing that the material and the spiritual are not two separate realms. It's not in one language, it's one mindset. You're communicating a feeling. You're communicating what the writer's inner soul was trying to say.
Not only the talks themselves, the extensive footnotes, and sometimes just in a few words, in a few small sentences, that Rebbe would allude to great chidushim. Those were as well were translated and opened up and explained.
Did things that were not traditional. Who's stamping on the cover, it's eerie, will enhance its appeal and its look and its feel. This is something that, I would love to check out and learn.
I didn't have the privilege of being present. I wasn't in the room when the Rebbe delivered these Sichos. But the way that the Sichos are recorded, and the extraordinary work of Rebbe Tauber in making them accessible to the masses by translating them, makes a person be transported as if they are in the room.
I want to know what the Rebbe said. I want to see it in the original. And even the translation, even the Sichos that are here, I appreciate the fact that they were brought down in the original Yiddish and translated from Yiddish to the English. This is how it came from the Rebbe's mouth. This is how it came from the Rebbe's pen.
I promise if you go on this this adventure, by the end of that Sicha, you will walk away with insight that doesn't just change what you know, but changes who you are.
So clearly there are lots of treasures to be uncovered, and thank you, Rifki, for so eloquently bringing to us how it can become ours and uncovered through the learning of Project Likutei Sichos. At this point, we'd like to say thank you to everyone who's joined online and wish you a good vach. And for all those who are here tonight, we have a beautiful kumzitz. Thank you to Mrs. Chaya Teldon, the head shlucha of Long Island, and to Hannah Greenberg, who is, I think your claim to fame after this weekend is going to be that you're Joni's granddaughter, because there's no higher compliment right now, so we get to hear from Hannah too. Oh, and her sister too. Okay, very exciting. So please join us for that. Thank you and good vach. Oh, and don't forget to say bracha achrona.
She said goodbye already to everybody. Everybody can move up, closer to Chaya.